Welcome back, 2025, to the sweet spot where IT leaders share the insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas, and I sing every week. And my two co-hosts, Howard Holton and Paul Lewis.
Every week might be
Sure, that might be a stretch.
every other month might be a
We took a long vacation.
It's true. We actually did the opposite of a long vacation. We did a very intensive, very sustained on the road approach.
Did you already hit platinum?
You know, oh yeah, I'm past platinum. I haven't hit 1K yet. Let's see, where am I?
I'm at 80K flight, and I'm at 47 nights.
Yes. So I'm already at 10 grand with Marriott.
Nice.
So I will definitely hit Ambassador Elite
This year.
this year.
I hold the suite for next, so that'll be a nice suite.
Right. And then let's see, what do I have for United?
United doesn't do bums and seats miles, so Air Canada is a much easier math. It's just bums and seats.
Right. So yeah, I'm already at about the same actually on United.
About 80% of the way there, give or take.
Well, no, they're both 40%, right? Because it's 23,000 in spend.
Got it. Yeah.
Yep.
So
after all, where are we?
Well, I'm at home this week. I took the whole week off because I am currently scheduled every week as travel between the third week of January through middle of June.
Okay.
I'm at home today, but I'm going to Ottawa the rest of the week. I have a bunch of stuff upcoming, including next, and I've got some Amsterdam, some London, a couple weeks in India for India teams. There's some good chunky things coming up before mid-year.
That's true, and you and I might start doing some travel together as we do a little project that we've got cooking.
Yep. Looking forward to that. That should be a good podcast. We should write that down somewhere.
Okay.
Within weeks, we'll have an interesting announcement.
Yeah, for sure. We should actually think about publishing our travel calendar on the Sweet Spot.
Yeah, that might be wise.
Right. Because I am also going to be in Amsterdam. I'm also going to be in the UK. I'm also going to be in Israel. So the week of April 14th, I'm in Amsterdam. The week of April 21st, I'm in Israel, with the UK somewhere in there.
Since our last pod, Howard and I have been in the same city, one time literally in the same airport at the same time, different lounges.
That one was even funnier. So not only we were in the same airport at the same time, but had we known, we could have spent the entire time there. He had a 4-hour layover, and it was 4 hours to my flight.
Right.
But instead of just going and sitting in the lounge for 4 hours, I went to the check-in counter, and they got me on an earlier flight. So I found out that Paul was in the airport while I had boarded the plane, while I was sitting on the plane. And he's going, I'm like, hi, I'm waving. I'll be here for 4 more hours. And I was like, well, we should probably
coincidentally texting, and then, hey, where are you?
Where are you?
Yep.
And then I was in Santa Clara, and one of my sales reps noticed Howard on a plane going to Santa Clara. And I met the rep. He says, hey, I think I just saw Howard on a flight here. So that prompted me to text, and we had dinner that night or the next night. It was great.
It was also a really obscure flight.
Right.
Like the entire
Santa Barbara to San Jose.
Santa Barbara does 21 flights a day, not 21 trips.
21 flights.
If you combine takeoffs and landings for commercial flights, it's 21 in total.
You got to think it'd be an even number, no?
No, you would think. I'm constantly amazed at how poor logistics companies are at logistics. But hey,
right.
It's 21.
So then, after the last episode, a couple of things have changed. A couple of things have been released. We still need to use hashtag GenAI so we can get more views and stuff like that, because keep growing. I'm Like literally, I got a message today. Somebody, have you already figured out the AI stuff so you can help me? And like, if somebody tells you that they figure out the whole thing, they're lying.
I was told you don't have to use hashtags anymore. Is that a true statement? There's no hashtags now, not a thing in any of the social platforms?
Sometimes, but
I mean, this week, but they'll change it again next week. Right, as soon as most people stop using hashtags, they'll go back to hashtags because they got to constantly change the algorithm.
The owner of X.com said I would never have to use tags again because their indexing is so amazing.
well,
Sure.
Sure. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Carlos.
no. So I think that then the question is the whole thing about the whole model generation. We were having that conversation, and I think that we stopped so we can have it in the episode because it's interesting about everything that is happening and the hype probably about it. So, what do you guys think about that and how the companies are actually reacting to that and how they may react?
I mean, overall, it's fascinating, right? I'm a big fan of competition. I don't really care where the competition comes from. Competition from sources you don't like is still good for the market overall, right? So, DeepSeek was kind of the big grenade that was thrown. They threw more than one grenade. Just most people paid attention to their model being released. Also, their model being available to run locally on Hugging Face, right? Like very specifically, not open source. Open source means you can compile it from code. You cannot do that, right? They don't give us all the information. So nothing on Hugging Face is really open source.
Right.
Released for public use should not be the same as open source.
Right.
Freemium or free, I'll buy. You know what I mean? But not open source.
Explain that a little bit better because I've seen a lot of posts and a lot of people saying now you can download it to your server. Like I have it on one version.
You can do that, right? 100% you can download it and use it on your server. You know what else you can download and use on your server? WinRAR, not open source.
That's a we're going there.
Sure, but pick any free software. Right? There are millions of pieces of free software you can absolutely download and use on your own server. You do not have access to the source code, therefore it is not open source.
That's true.
Open source by definition requires access to the source code so you can rebuild from source, which adds that layer of transparency. Whether it adds trust or not is, a different conversation, but it adds that layer of transparency. You can inspect the source, you can change the source, you can rebuild it. Depending on the license, you could even sell it if you had the desire to do so. Build a supported version if you had the desire to do so. But it requires access to the source. There are no models that give you access to the source. You can't start with the same things they did and completely rebuild it from scratch and end up getting exactly the same thing they did. While they give you a little bit of transparency, so much of it is still murky muck or simply not available for every model that I'm aware of.
More transparent than their Western equivalents?
I mean, that's a broad statement because there's like 10,000 models. You know what I mean? But compared to the models that they are competitive with, yes, they're definitely more transparent. Right? They've given us like a third more information. That's a lot of information.
Right.
They've given us a big block of information that simply is opaque from other vendors.
Do you think it makes it more explainable, less black boxy, or just better?
I don't
like on a spectrum of now I can explain every single inference to I can't tell anything because I ask it a question and get an answer.
I mean, I think it makes it. I think it's an improvement for sure. Better is a different statement altogether.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of the kind of quality measures were wildly overblown. I think people were really excited. I think people were also really excited about the kind of financials that they released without recognizing that they're legally barred from having access to the current NVIDIA hardware. And therefore, if, let's say, for instance, they bought it in a country that could receive it, loaded it on a ship and shipped it to China and put it in a data center in China and ran everything from there. Not that I'm saying they did, just as a possibility. They couldn't then go, hey, this is how much it costs for us to run this on the new NVIDIA hardware. They're legally barred from having it.
Right.
Right.
Which is why it felt so amazing that it was, $6 or $7 million of less than optimal equipment. Therefore, one could assume more optimal equipment would be better. But
again, that assumes that you're grabbing a narrative that isn't verifiable.
Right.
Right. If someone did that in the Western world, in a non-barred country, I think it would be more impressive.
Right.
But also, you could easily make that claim. Who was it? There were a bunch of people that came out afterwards that effectively made a claim that they took the DeepSeek methodology and moved the decimal point again to the cheaper side. Of course, when you got into what they were doing, they weren't doing anything at all like what DeepSeek did.
Right.
They're just making another spurious claim. And I mean, AI should also include hashtag spurious claims. Somebody reached out to me and they go, hey, Howard, how's it been? I'm just curious if you'd be interested in our masterclass on AI, whatever. There was a little more to it than that, but not really. And This is a LinkedIn message. And people should realize if you send me a LinkedIn message, probably take a look at the other LinkedIn messages you've sent me. Because when you send me one that says, hey, your CEO is or your company's based in Santa Barbara, if you've considered moving to Santa Barbara, please let me know. I'm a real estate agent. Don't then send me 6 months later your thing about your masterclass on AI. I'm unlikely to believe you.
Right. The likelihood you perform both of those services is low.
Now I get your message. That up here.
Yeah. Fully expect me to post that shit on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because it's funny.
I do enjoy those messages on LinkedIn from you because context is not always clear. Right. So you don't really know the story behind the story, but your point of view is always hilarious.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to call people out individually. I'm trying to call out endemic issues that I see in the industry. And so I do obfuscate the context a little bit, right?
You don't do at Paul Lewis. This is what I really think of you.
I do not. I mean, I have once or twice to various folks.
Right.
At some point we do need to do better. But I liked the one that was about the analyst firms. I don't know if you read that one.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Effectively, it was vendors complain all the time that analyst firms are pay to play.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yes, because we literally had someone reach out and go, we disagree with everything you said because you didn't give us all fives. And we're all fives because
must be wrong.
We sold stuff. So your report is wrong. Right. And we were thinking about buying it, but we won't buy it because it's not all fives.
I see. Wow.
Which is the most pay to play crap I've ever heard.
Right. Objectivity should be valued as
correct.
Right.
Correct. Also, you're just not that good.
That's right. There's a reason why I gave you a 3.
Well, here's the funny part. Every now and again, an escalation reaches my desk as the COO. I own product.
Sure.
There is no one higher. There is nowhere else for it to go. If you disagree with me, I am so sorry. Go pound sand.
That's right.
Because there's no one that can override me. You could, my CEO could fire me, but he can't override me on the decision.
Right.
He'd have to fire me and then override me.
Right.
As long as I'm still employed, there's no one higher. So every now and again, someone will reach out and complain that their scores aren't higher. And then I dig into it and find out, oh, your scores were way too high to begin with.
That's right.
You have to go through this entire thing and now rescore you because someone was way too generous and didn't want to give you bad news because you're just not that good.
There are some professors that you can't go and argue your grade with. You are one of those professors.
Correct.
I can imagine Howard giving a class on a university and then somebody coming and arguing a grade.
So that's not really accurate. I would absolutely welcome that discussion,
right.
But don't expect it to go your way. Right. You know what I mean? Like there have absolutely been times, and where someone has come and it's escalated all the way to me, and I'm like, hey, like maybe you should understand what we're looking for is, do you even have the feature?
Right.
Right. And then you replied back with 3 pages on a yes or no question. I don't know what to do with 3 pages. Literally, it was 3 pages. I don't know what to do with 3 pages. It's true, false. It's a Boolean equation.
Right.
You either do it or you do not. We have said you do not. You haven't actually said you do it. You've just buried me in bullshit.
Do you As an analyst, do you mark against perfect or do you mark against peers?
No, we mark against ideal for the customer is really what we're after.
Okay.
And so like as a customer, what are my expectations? If you meet those expectations, that's a 3. If you somewhat exceed them, that's a 4. If you quite exceed them, that's a 5. Here's where it also becomes a problem. We just did a report. It's going to be bad news for a bunch of people, where there were entirely too many 4s and 5s.
Right.
Right. And so I was sitting with the analyst and I'm going, hey, like, let's talk through it because I don't like this.
Right. It strains credulity is what you're saying.
Correct. And we're going through it and he's like, well, I mean, but they absolutely do these things. And I went, cool. So shouldn't we just reset our expectations? Like if the market has moved to the point where everybody gets a 4 and most people even get a 5 within that space, doesn't that mean our expectations are too low? And he went, crap.
Right.
Crap. Not I have to do the work again. He didn't actually mind. He said, crap, I didn't think about it through that lens.
Right.
Right.
What would have been a 4 last year is a 3 this year because now it's table stakes. Now
well, it's actually a 2.5 because there's been a lot of change within the space. Right. But and most vendors adopted it, right? And then I went, and that doesn't mean there's no 5s. That just means the difference now between a company that would have got a 4 on the prior report and a company that got a 5. There's more nuance there because you kind of bump everybody down and instead of grading the wrong direction on a curve, grade the right direction on a curve.
It's equivalent to staff performance reviews, right? So you gave somebody a 4 last year and then you promoted them. They're not a 4 this year. They're a 3 because you promoted them into something that you'd expect them to work differently and more for. Therefore,
they're a 2.8.
Okay, fair enough. But they're no longer a 4 because you've put them in a different level.
Correct. You've reset expectations, right? And if you've communicated well, the reason I came up with 2.8 for anyone who's listening is my expectation is you do 70% of any new role. So 4 times 7 times 0.7 is 2.8. That's while I was being oddly arbitrary, I was being specifically oddly arbitrary. Because I'm pedantic, but my expectation is 70%, right? So yeah, there are a whole new set of expectations, and if you got a 2.8 and you were a 4 before, you've actually met the expectations that I have set, and I'm okay with it. And if you get to a 3.1 or 3.2, you're doing great, and you're right on that path to be a 4.
That 3 is bad, and time again, I have to communicate why 3 isn't bad. 3 is in fact you're meeting the exact expectations, and I have high expectation of this role. Congratulations. That's good.
That's a very good way of explaining it, because not a lot of people, when they promote you or you're at that next level, to try to get that detail. Like you said, you're giving room to improve, to grow. Doesn't mean that because in that new role you're at this level, now you're bad.
My entire set of expectations have changed with your promotion.
Correct.
I know that's weird to say, but it's the truth, right?
No, not changed.
From director to VP, and now I have a different expectation of your behavior, skill, implementation.
Well, and the things that I expect don't fit the same category. It's not the same things at a harder scale. It's much different things because the role is distinctly different, right? At this point, you went from kind of leading a team and managing a series of tasks to directing a business unit.
Right.
So my expectation is completely different, right? You're changing that dial from individual contributor to leader in a very substantial way. That one's the biggest change for me. When someone goes from a manager to a director, that's the biggest kind of cultural shift within that space.
Let me throw a monkey wrench. What will happen now with the AI? How does that expectation now shift with how fast AI is helping someone to probably grow in those expectations? Before, I needed to do more presentations, and now I could do research faster to help my team, or any dimension. How does AI may affect or improve or help in those expectations?
I think it's great. I actually think it makes it easier for a good leader, not harder. Because what becomes clear that was opaque before is that a mistake because their grammar is poor, or they spent too much time on formatting, or whatever. Whereas now, like, I took a bunch of notes. I was doing a new project. I took a bunch of notes. I threw it into Doc. I just kind of threw my notes together. I then took that doc. I threw it in an AI model, and I said, turn this into an official document about, for a standardized product definition. And it just went and threw all of it together and gave me a standardized kind of template that I could use. I threw it in the sheet, good to go. What gets exposed with that really quick, and why I think it's actually better, is you can really rapidly see, I don't give a crap if it's AI generated or not, but I can really rapidly see, did you just accept the default AI? Or did you involve any critical thinking in this whatsoever? Right? And how has your critical thinking changed? How has your perspective changed with the addition of these new tools? Or is it just something that takes your 8 hours of work and turns it into 5? Right?
I have a different answer.
Yeah.
I would say that AI would have an influence in the outcomes and outputs they produce, probably better, probably faster. I get that. But I tend to judge an individual, or assess an individual, as they elevate through an organization via much more humanistic standards, right? So I look for different behaviors of empathy, different behaviors of leadership, different behaviors of communication, different behaviors of empowerment. Right? Those are the things I'm looking for you as a person changing over time. I'm less sure AI is positively affecting that, but it is affecting the quality and speed to which you're creating your deliverables. 100% true. Yeah. I'm less sure I can use that to get a better appreciation to whether your first team or the people who you report to or the people who are your peers. I think you need to see behavior. You need to see communication differently.
For sure. I was just referring to the things that AI can actually help with.
Sure.
I'm not sure they can help with those things.
Yeah.
So,
although, I mean, maybe it can. I've got an AI trained so well. I sent out a podcast with it.
Right.
Where everyone's response was, "Huh, you sounded scripted." Right, because I was the AI. Right. They're like, "You're not normally so scripted." I'm like, "Right, I'm also not an AI."
Right.
AI can't be extemporaneous, so I fed it a script. The two people on the podcast, both of those are AI.
Right.
Right. Like, so I guess technically it could help with some of those other things. I could easily have it feed all of my crap in and have it reply to people in a really empathetic voice using really empathetic language.
Then we know it definitely wouldn't be you.
That's true.
that I've been trying to see if I can help you with that for the LinkedIn post. I've been looking to see if the API allow me to automate the response. So if it has this, respond like Howard to see you say, "Oh, Howard, I found a way." Don't have it there yet, but that is an interesting detail.
My level of snark tends to violate the terms and conditions of any AI model. Like, even the one that I've trained with a ton of my snippets,
right?
It's pretty good, but it doesn't it doesn't cut to the deep like I do.
So, but here's the thing: you can actually put your notes in like something like Notion, and tell the model to go and pick, not generate.
No, yeah.
Pick an answer based on this set of tags. Yeah.
You get a lot more non sequiturs when you do that, though. You know what I mean? Like things that don't really fit, like you're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. That's the only issue that I've had with it. I'm trying to find like a happy medium to make that happen, because there is some like low value stuff that I really would like to be able to do.
You'll sound like a politician on a CNN interview, right? They have a set of talking points, and they're going to push the talking points regardless of question.
Yeah.
So we were talking about what's happening with AI and with the executives and the changes that they're applying. But how is this affecting the vendors? Are they still pushing their agenda? Have they learned to do something different?
They are still way ahead of the average enterprise.
But but only from adoption of AI, not from like really looking at the way we work. I'm still shocked and amazed how bad Gemini is, as an example. Right.
As a model or as a
tool. I don't care about the model. I care about the tool. I mean, forget about the fact that every other time you ask the model anything, it goes, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just a language model. Like, this is not the Hello Kitty model.
right.
But like, so for the very first time, I decided I want to use Gemini inside a Google Doc.
Right.
Okay.
The
So,
sidecar. Yeah.
correct. Great. But what I want you to do is not rewrite my crap. I'm fine with how it's written. Right. What I want you to do is fix the formatting so it's consistent.
Right.
Right? Because Google exposes none of that coding. Right? I'm an old WordPerfect guy. I'll pause while everybody Googles WordPerfect. But effectively, I think it was Shift F7 or Shift F5 or whatever, but that was reveal codes. Everything in WordPerfect was a code.
Right.
If you wanted to, you could completely write without ever taking your hand off the keyboard by writing in codes. Think about it like Markdown. Right? Google doesn't expose that in the interface in any useful way. I mean, Microsoft Word only partially exposes it.
Right.
Right? Shouldn't Gemini, though, be able to do something there? Wouldn't that be the most helpful thing? Like, hey, there's a bunch of formatting mistakes in here. Can you just make everything this font, everything this size? Like, here's my style guide. Can you just make sure this fits my style guide? That would be the most useful thing it could do by far. Because everything else it does is the same thing I get from every other model.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't do the thing that I'd want with Google Docs integration.
The only thing that Sidecar does in all of those things is make the answer context centric. It doesn't actually affect the document in any way.
Sure. As well, but just like any other model. If I copied and pasted the exact contents into another model and its chat interface and just said, hey, tell me whatever about this document, it will do exactly the same thing.
100% true.
Difference I get is I save Command X, Alt Tab, Command C.
Correct. That is what you're doing. That is what you're, yeah.
I don't think
that's and it has access to the rest of workspace. You could say, you know, this document that you see in front of me as compared to this folder, is there gaps between these two documents? That's an example.
So you're looking for a way to be more efficient so you don't have to format a document. How about for anything else? Does it work for anything else?
No. I am so dissatisfied with, honestly, I'm dissatisfied with pretty much all the AI tools. Now, again, the difference between a model and a tool is a model is great at having a chat and producing language. Cool. That's 1/50th of what I actually need during the day. And you would think Google would go, hey, there's like a million things we need to do. How about we actually give it control over the thing that's the hardest to do, not the thing that's commoditized now? I'm sorry, working with text is a commodity.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it, right? And Google has been so far behind, that would have been a really killer little feature for them to add.
What it does almost exclusively is summarize, elaborate, and elongate, right? Elaborate or shorten, right?
Yeah, but like I can right click on anything in Notion and get exactly those features.
Correct. Those are the features of the collaboration tool set. Other than Meet, then it might also do the transcription part of it. The only additional value is Notebook LM. That is much more of a research tool, right? You give it 50 documents and then have it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Have it assess
Notebook LM. You know, Notebook LM. I signed up for the Notebook LM Studio thing, and I went, and all I'm trying to do is see of the podcasts that I'm in. When I say something interesting, can you grab it and throw it in a text doc so I can use it to train AI? So I give it the URL. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they freaking own YouTube.
That is a correct statement.
Right. So it can't use the URL. It tells me to pound sand on the URL. However,
yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. I promise.
I add YouTube.
However,
okay.
If you copy, it says, if you give me the description of the video, I can find it. So I gave it the title and it went, yeah, this is exactly what it is, when it was recorded, everything. Why can't you use the URL, you cheap, stinky, stupid freaking bastard?
What I know is that if it's a live, the backend is different.
Yeah,
so it has to be
It has to be a video.
video.
The URL that it allow you to import, you need to have the watch endpoint, and then it will grab it. If it has a live, then it will not do it. So all that you have to do, you go to the video and you cut just a little bit and save it, and it becomes a video.
I in fact
Or
give
you
it
just do what I
YouTube all
did.
the time, and it works.
It works zero. That's even worse. Frankly, that's even worse. That it works sometimes is worse than it never works.
I see.
I actually created an extraction layer for the transcription, so I can just feed a YouTube video, and I automatically get the transcription. So then I can feed it to any of that. But I like that.
recommend you reaching out to your Google partner and see if you can get some education.
I believe I am, sir. It's just like I don't know. I find that with Google, like, the thing that frustrates me about Google AI isn't that they're worse than anybody else, because they're about the same at this point. It's one, they're late to the game, and two, because they own so much of the ecosystem, they should just simply be better, right? You would think with all of the data that Google has had from a decade of running Mail and Docs and Sheets and what's their PowerPoint thing called? Slides. You think they would have used all of that to actually start to bring things that had value beyond what is commodity for every other LLM, considering they're a year and a half, 2 years behind. That's my frustration. I'm not.
The model probably is better based on having all of that access to data, but the features aren't better having access to the collaboration tools.
And it's wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right. I could even suffer through some of it if it was consistent.
It's like having a Ferrari without wheels.
It's like having a Flintstone Ferrari.
Ferrari.
It looks really good, but the floor is completely rusted out and it doesn't run, and you just have to kind of pedal it down the road.
Not that I'm selling product here, but did you try Agent Space yet? And do you see a distinct difference between Agent Space and...
I haven't tried Agent Space yet, but that is on my list of to-dos. Again, I'm off this week, so...
So Agent Space equals Gemini plus Notebook under a single tool set and connects to the rest of your knowledge bases. Your ServiceNows, your Atlassians, your finance systems, all of those things.
Sure, whatever. I mean...
It's more grounded at the end of the day, right?
Have you used N8N yet?
Ooh.
No.
That's a platform of choice.
I mean, it's still not. Make is still my platform of choice, but the intersection of those two is freaking fantastic.
So I actually have a automated script to load servers and to build them, because like the cost of running like all those automations compared to what you can do with NAN is like literally you can have a $5 VM on the cloud and you can be running millions of requests. And all the AI agents running, automatically getting everything out. I actually have a process that actually took a worth of 1 week of human work of 6 professionals down to 6 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, take a look at the average work done by any professional. That's not surprising.
And did you charge for the savings received, a percentage of the savings received?
That's the whole idea. So it's actually going, and so we make it into smaller bots that actually communicate with each other and go and do the work. And then at the end, it goes to Google and it drops some things, go to AWS, drop all the stuff, go and does some research, come back. And then in that way, at the end, literally, all the stuff that they had to do manually now is going, and like, they were like, oh, this is amazing, because now I don't have to wait all that. We can be on a meeting and we can test something and then move along.
Yeah, my concern for anything remotely production is AI doesn't understand cloud security.
Correct. I was going to ask you about that. I had to do a lot of other things for that. So it's not upfront. Like, I seen a lot of people doing stuff with no security. And I'm like, they have the option, but they're not applying it. Like, and somebody like Olama. You can have Olama, but they just put it unencrypted, no security, when you can put a layer of security protected have it all working correctly. And like,
Yeah.
that's
Are
my
you thinking
concern.
ACL? Or are you talking about what side of security is most relevant to you in that circumstance?
I don't know who you're asking.
Whoever wants to answer. Is it access control? Is it identity? What's
Depend on the product.
Yeah.
If you don't configure correctly, then they will have, let's say, the most basic thing. We have had SSL certificates forever, but
Right.
they just spin up something and they don't put no certificates.
I see.
They don't put no passwords, no API keys, because again, they showing how to do it easy and fast instead of taking a little bit more time to actually say, how can this be deployed in production? You don't want something open to the internet. And then
or at any enterprise, right?
correct. That's the thing. You don't want it in an enterprise, but a lot of the people, I think that we talk about this, the practitioners are doing it for small businesses or for people that have home labs. They put it out, they get millions of views. Then people in enterprises say, I want to do something similar. So they take those instructions, and because they have automated the whole process, they don't see what is happening in between. That now they have all these open services that we have worked so hard to secure forever, and now they're open again.
I mean, we haven't worked so hard to secure them forever. Let's start
But I
there.
remember SOX, and in SOX, the SOX audits, that was the whole thing about how do you secure your environment so you don't have it open.
I mean, yes, but yes, modern best practice has you do a ton of things that none of these things do, and the tools are simply unaware of. Right? You still have to secure the cloud. Being able to deploy instantly, it's fine for proof of concept.
Right.
Like it's fantastic. Stand it up, no data that matters. However, just know, right? There are botnets that their entire purpose in life is to see what the new open endpoint is, and then start banging on it and trying to leverage it. Right. So I'm constantly concerned about, hey, what are you doing to make sure that open webhook that you just made available isn't, being raped?
What's more likely to be true, that you've now created an unsecure tunnel into your environment, or that it simply doesn't work when you try to put it in production? But there's enough control
in your environment. No, unsecure tunnel is the problem.
Oh yeah, you don't think people have the controls in place that it simply just wouldn't work?
No, because if they had the controls in place, one of those controls would be security review before it goes into production to begin with.
Sure enough.
Right? And so they just go, oh, none of our security tools are in place. None of our security controls are in place. You have to go back and do this all over again.
Right.
And ultimately, that's where there's a massive challenge in this new kind of quote unquote developer space, right? If I don't care how good the AI is, if the AI doesn't conform 100% to the standards that your organization has set, you're not actually helping anything, because you're enabling people to get beyond their skis of what they understand without the ability to ever remediate it. Right? So you can develop a lot of neat stuff, but that neat stuff, the second you go to put it in production and apply your corporate controls, is completely broken.
Right.
And the developer that developed it didn't develop it because they used AI. And so they don't have the same level of understanding as someone who developed it. Right. I don't want to say that as though people shouldn't be using this stuff now and kind of learning it and understanding it. All of that is going to evolve over time. Right. Like in the future, we absolutely see an agentic workflow for software development that includes an agent to secure your code. Right. It includes an agent that manages supply chain, that includes an agent to do these things. They're just not there today. Right.
And would you build that agent, or you'd expect that agent to be in the checkout model of GitHub?
I would expect that to be part of GitHub, and GitHub expects that to be part of GitHub. That being said, I also expect an agent that is my agent that I would expect to build, that has my practices, that has my rules, that has my governance layers. There's no way GitHub's going to be able to do that. But I do expect kind of the things that are public for GitHub to have that agent as part of their agentic workflow, especially when they see 1 billion developers in the future. I mean, I would never even mention that without having security at least integrated to a much higher degree than it currently is.
Right. Or at least an enterprise set of services that are distinct from the basic set of services to which I have more control over.
Sure. Or 463 warning messages that you have to click through. Right. That if it is the enterprise version, it also notifies your boss. Hey, just so you know, Howard just clicked through 7 warning messages on this security that does not exist. So just so you know, right? Give it some extra QC.
Which makes me want to circle the wagons back to the very first question. Right?
Sure.
We talked about new models being introduced and their distinctiveness as compared to their peers in the West. I'm wondering aloud in public whether any of that matters, because going forward, the least likely thing I'm going to do is download a model, ground it on my own. The most likely thing I'm going to do is API to a model, ground it with my own data in my own environment. Would you agree with that statement?
I think there's places for both of those things.
Okay.
Right. I think unless you really have a good idea of why you need to build a model yourself or why you need to run a model locally, you should be using the API. Like I'm a big hardware nerd. I really like building out labs. I am super excited by what you can do with locally running hardware on commodity GPUs. I think it's really exciting, but the cost to build something that's even remotely decent would take me, I don't know, 2 years at my current pace, burning through API, credits to even come close to that cost model. And by that point, anything I would have built is so far out of date that it's useless as well. Like the economics just don't work. And that doesn't change when your needs get bigger. Like this is one place where the cloud providers really have this down to a relatively high level. Also, all the AI only companies, Perplexity, OpenAI, Claude, right? They're subsidizing this stuff to make it as cheap as possible anyhow, so they can get that momentum that they need. So I have no idea why you would do any of that on-prem or run it in your own Google Cloud or anything, right? Rent GPUs that way.
Plus, I really think that grounding has evolved enough that there's very rarely would I need to tune an algorithm outside of grounding.
That is true. I mean,
Yep.
You're much more likely to need a model that is additional to the large language models. Like you're much more likely to need an SML or an MML, more likely an SML, right? Like you're much more likely to go, I need you to generate this thing, and then as a part of your agentic, run it through a model that has a very specific purpose and training, but still a public model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like. It's kind of funny if you go back and listen to us a year and a half ago. I was saying, look, guys, RAG is not going to take us much anywhere. You're going to invest a ton of time. You're going to invest a ton of money. We're going to replace it almost immediately. And then what happened? Grounding is so much better. We don't actually need to do that way exactly. Also, wickedly commoditized now.
Right.
Right. Again.
100% true. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. Good circle the wagons.
So we went the whole way, and I think that the question to close is, what should technology professionals or leaders should be focusing? I'm not going to say in the next 6 months. What do you think that they should be focusing in the next month?
Definitely collaboration tools.
I mean, I think you really need to understand, like right now, you should be able to make a list of all of the things in your environment that you think AI should be used for and start testing them. Just start running proof of concepts. Start finding the edges of what's reasonable and what's reasonable for you. Not just what's reasonable, what the tools are capable of, but what are you actually capable of? What can you actually get done? Where can you find value? If you've already done that, great. You're ahead of most organizations. But the reality is there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of BS. There's a lot of people claiming mastery. The three of us have spent a tremendous amount of time. I don't think any one of us has more than 5% of mastery in this space.
100%.
Right? And tomorrow it will be 3.5% because some new thing will come out that you have to freaking start all over again.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
It's absolutely insane. And so please, like discover for yourself. Don't buy the BS.
And I really think like the gap we see the most, the gap I personally see the most is not the tool enablement. It's the user enablement. The big difference between keyword search and prompts is not a little bit, it's a lot. I spend so much time helping somebody ask questions, a question that's actually helpful, not just a random question, or using questions to build questions, right? Prompt for prompts. That in many ways is a pretty giant leap from keyword search, and that I think is still a pretty big gap.
Yeah, I will say I'm shocked and amazed how many people, like, I'll post something, right, and the response I'll get back is what do you do? What are you using? Well, I'm using the public version of ChatGPT for this.
Right.
How are you getting that response? Like, why is your response so much higher quality than my response? Because I've been doing this for 2 years and actually invested the time, and it's not just something that I invest 3 minutes every third week to learning about.
And more importantly, the answer you're getting now isn't the first question I've ever asked on the subject.
Correct.
Yes.
Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? We're not that good. It took us a while to get to creating the appropriate prompt to get the answer I was looking for.
In 3 years, 4 years, this has been 3.5 years, whatever, 3 years and some months that this stuff has been out. I think I've got 10,000 hours in it.
Right.
Like, easily. You know what I mean? And I don't understand people that think they can watch one YouTube video and then start turning around amazing results. Right? Like, you look at it and you're like, I mean, that's well formatted, and that is in fact language, right? But it is buzzword bingo from top to bottom, right? There is no value there.
Right.
You said the same thing that had you not even started with source material, I would have told you the same thing. You could have asked me, hey, what are the 5 things most important for someone to know about this topic? I could have given you the exact same answers, and you didn't have to give me the topic.
Right.
You could have just said the words random technology topic. Answers would have been exactly the same. Right? Well, 1, it's a business imperative. 2, it's hugely disrupting. 3, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's the kind of responses that you get. None of that is actually helpful. None of that is actually useful. When it gets real pointed and real specific, that's when you can tell the value. And honestly, that's when you can tell that you have a consultant in the room that knows what the heck they're doing. When the first response they get back is better than the 5th response of the last consultant, you know you've got a decent consultant.
Nice. That's good. You should write that down. You should tweet that out.
Well, my friends, it has been awesome to see you again. To all our audience, we're back. Make sure that you take time. This one was a long one, so take notes, go back, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your coworkers, share with your boss. We'll see you in our next episode.